I'm looking at the internet. There are so many Pokemon fans, and their anger takes so little to reach us. All we ever see of Pokemon stands are the old complaints. It's November 15th, 2019. Pokemon Sword and Shield is released for Nintendo Switch. Pokemon fans are outraged by the game. They said the game is the worst Pokemon game yet, and a disappointment compared to the previous generation games. It's March 6th, 2011. Pokemon Black and White is released for the Nintendo DS. Many Pokemon fans are outraged by the game. They said the game is the worst Pokemon game yet, and a disappointment compared to the previous generation games. It's August 2021. The Pokemon Company will soon release the upcoming Diamond and Pearl remakes. The Pokemon fans cheer for the Nintendo DS days. They say Pokemon Black and White is an underrated masterpiece, and Game Freak should remake it too. It's October 7th, 2012. Pokemon Black and White 2 is released for the Nintendo DS. The stands say Ice Cream Pokemon and Trash Pokemon are bad, and why would they play a game with those kind of Pokemon, let alone a sequel? They say Pokemon is overrated and a dead franchise. Pokemon Black and White 2 will be one of the least selling Pokemon games. I'm tired of Pokemon, these idiot stands and developers. I'm tired of being caught in the argument of their lives.
기름
Hello fellow Jerrycans. I previously reviewed an okay Pokemon game which was a boring experience, then the worst Pokemon game which wasn't a boring experience but wanted to make me slip my wrist with an alternate Necrozma plushie. So for today, for once, I want to talk about a good Pokemon game. Let's talk about the first generation 5 Pokemon game released for the Nintendo DS, Pokemon Black and Pokemon White. Let's start with its turbulent history. Fans' attitude toward this game went from one end to the other. When this game came out, I remember Pokemon fans not liking these games. I remember watching a YouTuber named Barlog, who I was surprised to find out he was still active, review these games in 2012, and talk about how these games are good, but left a lot to desire.
To me, the best way to compare Pokemon games are with my pairs of shoes. Now my old shoes represent Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, as in I've been wearing these shoes for a while and it's the same formula every time, but these still fit great and feel like, well, an old shoe. However, my new shoes represent Pokemon Black and White, as in I'm not really fitting into them that well yet, and well, I think I stepped in some poop with them, so gotta wash my hands. Oh god.
Man, watching reviews like this that are almost 10 years old take me back. Good insight to a simpler time. Anyways, I think the biggest reason why it got so much hate was because how different it was compared to the previous games, and the weird Pokemon designs. Fast forward to 2021. You can't find anyone in the Pokemon community that hates these games anymore, and there are so many damn Unova stands. So many people talk about how great Team Plasma was, how handsome Men was, even though he may be a furry, so all N stands are technically furries, how great the story was, and I'm starting to think people are now starting to overrate this game.
What?
Yes, you heard me right. The once underrated Pokemon Black and White is now overrated. Even though I think Black and White 1 is a good game, it's not the perfect games like it's called these days. So, let's find out why I think like that. Part 0. Why overrated though? Do you want to know why this game fucking sucks? You want to know how they completely fucked the Pokemon franchise with a 3-foot long dildo? I'll explain. It's because that fucker main character Hilbert keeps having his hand on the hat. Like, why does he have his hand on his hat? Have you ever tried that in real life? Your arm hurts. Put your goddamn hand down, damn it. And that fucker Gen 1 and Red copied that in Gen 7.
Put your hand down.
What's wrong with these people? Cretin idiots. That's it, this game fucking sucks. End of review, goodbye. Okay, for real though, there is a reason why I think it's getting overrated. Now, don't misunderstand. When I say overrated, it doesn't mean a game is bad, but I'm just saying it doesn't necessarily deserve all the praise it gets. And since I'm reviewing a good Pokemon game, unlike my USGM review, I'm going to talk about the things I like in the game, things I didn't like, and the most negative things I will say are either the nitpicks or small things that didn't ruin the whole experience. Just to remind everyone, Pokemon Black and White is a good game, I love it like everyone else, but you have to admit, it's fun to make fun of and criticize popular things. So that being said, why do I think it's overrated? I think it's mostly because of comparative nostalgia. Like the recent Pokemon games had been god-awful, so we look back at these games fondly, comparatively. Also, I think this game is in a similar situation as Diamond and Pearl. Like, when someone talks about how great the original Sinnoh is, what they're actually talking about is the awesome game Pokemon Platinum, not the awful original DP games. While Black and White 1 is not as bad as Diamond and Pearl, I think a lot of things we love about Generation 5 are not from this game but from Black and White 2. For example, the lovely animated sprites of trainers, that's from Black and White 2, not this game. The plentiful post-game, this game does have a post-game unlike modern games, but it's still barren and devoid compared to Black and White 2. The vast expansive Unova region. Unova in this game was kind of tiny. The kick-ass Gen 5 music everyone loves and likes to make memes about. I actually think the trainer theme and gym leader music in this game might be the blandest in the entire series, and the remixes in the sequels were much better.
Holy shit, I'm gonna come.
You see what I mean? I think our memory and nostalgia of the Gen 5 games are kinda mixed with the positives of Black and White 2. In this review, I want to look back at Black and White 1 on its own, and to see if it could stand on its own. I'm going to pick a lot of holes and problems you may have forgotten about this game because of the sequel, so maybe you'll agree with me. Maybe you'll think I'm still wrong by the end of the review, but if you're thinking about my opinion, it don't matter if you're black or white. Stan. Part 1, the graphics. Worse than you remember it. Let's talk about something I think people really have a nostalgia flavored rose tinted glasses on, meaning it's not as good as you remember it, starting with the graphics of this game. A lot of people praise the graphics and visuals of Generation 5 Pokemon games. They say it's one of the best looking games on the Nintendo DS, and Game Freak really outdid themselves with this game, but I disagree. Yeah, I may be a minor opinion on this, and I think I might lose credibility for saying this, but I don't like the graphics and aesthetics of Generation 5 Pokemon. I've seen people say Game Freak lost their edge with the graphics in Sword and Shield, but I'm gonna let you know a little secret, kids. Pokemon graphics sucked in the old days too. First, the battle screen. Unlike Generation 4 Pokemon where the sprites remain stationary, Game Freak decided to use constantly animated sprites for the Pokemon. Also, the battle screen is not completely 3D, so the camera moves around frantically, unlike the previous generation. I like the camera movement, but the rest of everything, not so much. I don't know if I have to blame Game Freak's lack of skills to optimize the game to add in high quality animated sprites or the DS's low hardware, but the Pokemons are way too pixelated. Like Tepig looks about as awful and pixelated as Gen 1 back sprites. This plus the unique looking Unova Pokemon designs lead to most of them looking like pixelated barfs that's super distracting. Like, why are these sprites so low quality? The back sprites are so pixelated you can probably count the pixels. Second, the background of the battle screen. I'm sorry, but most of them look hideous. In every Pokemon battle we have indoors, we get this disgusting mixed hue of beige and gray. Like, does this look appealing? And why are there random flashes of red, blue, green flashing by the screen? Oh wait, red, blue, and green? Masuda, you son of a bitch. Is that a fucking Kanto reference? At least they fixed in the sequel by having it be a nice hue of orange. But man, this game can get ugly at some sections. Also, this is a criticism for all games from Gen 3 to 5, but couldn't we get more interesting backgrounds for the battle screen that actually looks like a forest or a city? It's not like the DS hardware could handle something like this, because in the next games, battles that take place in the Pokestar Studios look really nice and realistic. You may call this a nitpick, but since battling takes up like half of the gameplay, I find it very frustrating. Like at the end, I love the atmosphere and architecture of N's castle, but in the final epic battle with N and Guesses, The in-battle screen background is this ugly-ass gray fog dust storm that makes everything look like a Zack Snyder movie. I think another problem is that a lot of people who play these games played it on an emulator that uses higher filtering and textures, and most of the HD footage you find on YouTube are from emulators, so people think Gen 5 graphics look better than they actually are. The game indeed looks better on emulator, but we're reviewing the actual physical game, right? Let's also talk about how the overworld graphics now. Since it was on the same console as the Gen 4 games, they decided to make it look different by everyone having really tall sprites. I do like the tallest sprites, but rest of the overworld, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but there's something about the aesthetics of Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver I like that made the overworld look smooth and warm, sort of like a children's story. Unova in this game feels very cold and urban for some reason, and the overworld graphics doesn't really feel pleasing to me. I guess this realistic aesthetic exists because Unova is based off of New York City, which is really urban. This is really my personal taste, but I like the Generation 4 overworld design better. There's just something about the UI that makes the game ugly in my mind too. Like in battle, in the previous gen they had used clear capitalized fonts, but in this game, it's this ugly font that is kind of hard to read at first. The bottom screen too, it's this weird asymmetrical, disproportionate oval or octagon shapes instead of squares that makes it look ugly as hell. Something about the Seagear UI design that makes everything look dirty. Yeah, this is nitpicking, but is it making games look beautiful kind of the thing Pokemon fans want out of Game Freak these days? I'm just sharing my opinions, y'all, and I just don't think this game looks appealing visually, especially compared to Gen 4. Part 2. Deleted features from Gen 4. One of the big problems I have with all Pokemon games, even the old Pokemon games, is that new features that are introduced in a generation are dropped in the next generation. For example, an excellent catching mechanic in Pokemon ORAS, whoop, gone in Pokemon Sun and Moon, or Mega Evolution, whoop, gone in Sword and Shield, or Habitat List in Pokemon Black and White 2, whoop, gone in X and Y, or animated sprites in Pokemon Crystal, whoop, gone in Ruby and Sapphire. You see what I mean? Pokemon Black and White is no exception, and there are features from Generation 4 that are mysteriously not in the game. For starters, let's talk about the bottom screen. What I loved about Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver was the very nice UI on the bottom screen. Not needing to constantly press B to run and not needing to fumble around for the menu was very nice. Well, that's gone in the game in favor of the Seagear, which is completely useless because A, I never lived in Japan or went to a con in USA, and B, it's not 2010 anymore. The bike in this game is crap as well. Remember in Gen 3 they introduced Acro bikes and Mac bikes? Then in Gen 4 they introduced bikes having gears with actual physics? Well, in this game the bike's controls are god-awful. There is no acceleration and you are either stuck with walking or running or going 5,000 miles per hour on your bike, so it's very hard to enter a door. You're gonna be fumbling around the entrance to every Pokemon Center in this game. Or the footsteps of the player. In the previous game, every time you stepped on grass in the overworld, it made a sound. And in this game, the player makes zero sound when moving. You may say this is a pointless feature, but I keep feeling like I'm floating above the ground whenever I play the Gen 5 games. Following Pokemon 2, I heard there is an in-game data for every Pokemon in the overworld, so why isn't following Pokemon a thing? It was one of the best features in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, and I can't believe we had to wait 8 years later until the Let's Go games for this feature to return. There is literally a character in this game that doesn't like putting Pokemon in Pokeballs, but no one uses the Pokewalker.
Most illogical reaction.
Where did the animated trainer sprites go? Platinum and Heart Gold and Soul Silver had all important NPCs like gym leaders have animated sprites, which made them feel unique. And in this game, for some reason, every gym leader in Elite 4? Nah. Only Terran, Bianca, and N are animated. Let's also talk about the Battle Frontier.
Where is it? Where the hell is it? Where the hell is it?
After 2 games in a row of Battle Frontier, I hoped the facility for hardcore and creative Pokemon battles would become the norm for the franchise, but this game was the first game to say, nah, fuck that. Instead, we got the Battle Subway, and boy, the subway is such a missed opportunity. Masuda said Unova is based off of New York, and aren't subways such a big part of the city's culture? As a fan of The Legend of Zelda Spirit Tracks, and as a hater of Elon Musk and his stupid boring tunnel in Las Vegas, and as a solo-light commuter who lives in a city with a subway system that is the best in the world, eat it Tokyo, making the subway into a poor man's version of the Battle Tower was kinda disappointing to me. We got this crap instead of the Battle Frontier, and still not getting back with the Gen 4 remakes? Why is the Battle Subway so bland, so lazy? So bad, rebattling gym leaders is gone too. Just like the Battle Frontier, we had 2 consecutive games that had gym leader rematches as a feature. I love gym leaders rematches because A, it's good post-game content, B, it makes the gym leaders more memorable, and C, isn't it implied gym leaders go easy on you depending on how many badges you have? Getting to battle them in their full power is fun. This game ditched that too. But thank God, this feature was returned in the sequel. You see, all of these, except maybe the subway, are minor details, but to me, little details that are missing like this stick out to me. Like, why look forward to improvements in a game design or a new refreshing mechanic if you're gonna ditch them in the next game? So, will Dynamax be back in Gen 9?
Absolutely fucking not.
Part 3. The map design. Let's talk about the map design of Unova. The overall design of Unova might actually be worse than Sword and Shield straight south to north in terms of linearity. It's literally one line from south to north. There are only 2 areas that are optional, which is the Desert Resort and Route 17 to 18, and the Desert Resort is visited later in the game. If it wasn't for the part that forces you to visit Relic Castle, I think this game could be literally beat without HM Move Fly. It's that linear. So it's linear. Does that mean it's bad though? No. Yeah, I would have preferred if they gave us options and twisted our adventure around like Hoenn and Sinnoh, but the game makes it up with very creative dungeon designs. There are very memorable creative routes and dungeons in the game, so the linearity is not very distracting. See Sword and Shield? That's what you get for making Galar linear and the dungeons boring as fuck. Anyways, it's so refreshing to play through areas made by map designers that actually cared for once. Like the gym puzzles all feel like they put so much thought and love into it, and it's just a sharp contrast from Gen 7's half-assed island trials. Roller coaster theme park, underground caves, airport hangar. This game was so creative, the gyms. Victory Road actually feels climatic and is a tough biscuit to get through. And there are special parts in the map that utilizes camera movements that remind you, oh yeah, this map is 3D, unlike your Generation 4 games. And I love these kind of sections. The most interesting parts are the circular sections of Dragon Spiral Tower, some of the Unova bridges, and the slopes of Victory Road. That's why I kinda disappointed the whole game was not like this, because 90% of the world is tile-like like the previous 4 gens. Imagine an entire Unova region where every route and dungeon utilize the 3D graphics, so it doesn't feel like a tile-like environment. I mean, the normal routes designs aren't bad, like areas like Charstone Cape don't utilize the 3D very much are good, but I want more. I feel like they originally were planning to make the entire game like this, but then realized it would take a lot of time, so they scrapped it. Did they cut corners? Wink wink. But I don't understand why the overall Unova region is like this. From Castelia to Opelucid City, it's constant gym, route, gym, route, gym, and route. The Eastern Unova region is locked up until the post-game. I think it would have been nice to go to the Eastern Unova like we do in Black and White 2 during the main story, and have some of the gyms be there. Eastern Unova feels so barren compared to the West. Ironic that this is based off America, by the way, but I'll talk about this more later when I talk about the post-game. However, I have to mention something glaringly bad about this game in terms of map design, and it's that the first 4 hours of this game is about as bad as the Gen 7 games. I think Pokemon Black and White is a very difficult game to get into at first. Everything up to Nacrene City is just boring routes, and the only dungeon you explore is the pathetic Dream Yard. Compared to Kanto, where you went through Viridian Forest and Mount Moon by Gym 2, or 2 small caves and Eterna Forest by Gym 2 in the previous iteration, this game is child's play. Considering the structure of the first gym is teaching you about type advantages, which felt unnecessary, because I remember understanding it perfectly while playing Pokemon Leaf Green as a kid. This mentality of Masuda trying to hold your hand and baby the player by holding hands and never letting go started to creep into the franchise with Black and White 1, culminating in Gen 7. Well, I guess the difference between this game and Gen 7 is the game starts to pick up after Castelia City and gets fun, while USUM never improved after the first island, and the whole experience to the end felt like what Napoleon's soldiers felt while retreating from Moscow to France in winter. Part 4. Masuda and 151. You're probably surprised I haven't mentioned the ugly designs of Pokemon yet. When this game came out, the design of the Pokemon was the #1 complaint among fans. Such a romantic time and simpler time when the only controversial thing about Pokemon was designs.
Before the dark times. Before the Empire.
Well, I don't really care about the Pokemon designs. First of all, ugly is subjective. Like, I'm pretty sure the mothers of Danny DeVito and Elon Musk told them they're beautiful as a kid. Second, I just like Mew creatures. Like I said, I really don't care about design, so when it comes to Pokemon numbers, it's a rare case where I prefer quantity over quality. I just like creative designs and I want to catch them all. I just like Mew Pokemon coming out, so having 150 plus Mew Pokemon with creative designs is cool, but then Game Freak decided to take a big risk with this game, and I do applaud this decision, along with the story that I'll talk about in the future, because one of the biggest problems with the Pokemon games was and is that it's basically the same game over and over, but with just Mew Pokemon in region, so the developers taking a risk needs to be recognized. So what was the risk? Well, they made a creative decision to have only Mew Unova Pokemon to appear in the main game. Yes, previous generation Pokemon would not appear in the main campaign and would only appear in the post-game area. So the first time ever in Pokemon history, you can't catch a Pikachu and had to settle for the statue in Nimbasa City. So let's talk about that decision. The people who commend this choice by the developers say it was good for the game because of balancing issues. One of the problems of the older game was that there were so many useless Pokemon, so many were getting underused. Game Freak was able to balance the game very well with the Mew Pokemon because they were making Mew Pokemon from scratch. So not many Pokemon feel useless, and most Pokemon you see are all viable to be used. Also, they won't be overshadowed by the stronger older Pokemon, so the fans will try out using the Mew Pokemon. So Game Freak was able to balance the game well with few Pokemon. At least that's what the Nuzlocking or competitive community told me. Here's the thing, I really fucking hate the Unova Pokemon limit. Main reason is because I don't play Pokemon for the battles. Every single Pokemon playthrough, I just end up using only 6 Pokemon, and the rest of the Pokemon I catch are just for my personal amusement, or to fill the Pokédex, or because it looks cool or rare. Unless I'm being drunk or feeling masochistic by forcing myself to play a Nuzlocke of a Pokemon game. Join me every Thursday, stream time is in description. Outside of the main 6 Pokemon, other Pokemon I never use, so I really don't care about the balancing issues. For the sake of balancing and making the Unova Pokemon feel unique, I feel like the developers were forcing the limit on us. And that's the thing. There's only 151 Pokemon you can catch in the game. Well, 152 if you include Kyurem or Landorus, but doesn't that 151 number sound familiar? That's right! It is the director of the game, Gen 1er Masuda's favorite number. He previously forced the Diamond and Pro Pokédex to be 151. It then had the XY Dex have 151 Pokemon per section in Kalos. He also directed the Let's Go games, which had 151 Pokemon until someone sneaked in the Melton line. In fact, every game he's directed except Ruby and Sapphire has number 151 in it. What the fuck is this man's obsession with the number 151? Is the number 151 a secret safe for when he's doing it with his soulmate Obori? Having only 151 Pokemon really sucks in my opinion. There's not much variety among the trainers you fight, and not much to collect. Wow, a Team Plasma Grunt battle! Gasp! What were the chances they were going to use either a Patrat, Purleon, Trubbish, Sandile, or Scraggy family Pokemon? Oh boy, I'm so scared this is going to get fucking repetitive. Also, only having the Unova Dex kinda sucked because I like new evolutions for classic Pokemon and it's not in this game. One of the best things about Gen 2, 4, and 8 was Mew evolution for Pokemon, because it allowed crap Pokemon to become better. Also, giving classic Pokemon Mew spins lead to many lovely designs like Magnezone or Obstagoon. At least the Gen 6 games had Mega Evolutions and Gen 7 had regional forms unlike this game. That's why Unova Pokemon always felt kinda distant compared to the other gens. Anyways, I like variety and quantity when it comes to Pokemon creatures. One of the good things I'd have to say about Sword and Shield or even fucking USUM was that they really had a big regional dex, so a lot of Pokemon to collect. Arbitrarily limiting the number to one man's bizarre obsession feels like limiting to the player. Maybe if they introduce, I don't know, 300 new Pokemon in this game, it would be a different story. But since they didn't do that, that's a question for Uatao the Watcher. Part 5, the story. Believe it or not, I think the story of Pokemon Black and White is just mediocre at best. Yeah, it took risks. Yeah, it was a Mew take. Yeah, it's Game Freak actually caring and trying to write a good story for once, but good? Not really. But I will give Game Freak the credit for trying. The reason why Pokemon Black and White feels so different from the other games is that it took a risk with the story. First time in the series, they actually put a lot of thought into the story. They actually wanted to do a mature story this time, and not a cliche story about taking down a comically evil supervillain or just trying to be the very best. Masuda wanted to tackle themes like ideals, truths, and he wanted to address questions of Pokemon mistreatment. Noble cause, but I don't think the execution was great. I think most of the fans who say Pokemon Black and White story was so deep and touching were people who actually played these games when they were like 8, and they thought the convoluted dialogue actually meant something. Like they forced words such as ideals, truth, point of views into dialogue including the intro. It kinda sounds like a kid trying to pretend he's actually an adult online. But before we get into the nitty-gritty, let's do the basics. Team Plasma is the main focus. They're basically a medieval-themed cult that believe they must liberate Pokemon from humans, and their leader is a green-haired teenager who is called King. They live in a giant castle of all places. The main problem is Team Plasma are just comically evil villains. Like the whole conflict with N wasn't a moral question about ideals or truths. Team Plasma is just evil. The game says they're good guys, but Team Plasma literally steals Pokemon from trainers and are robbers. If they were trying to parody PETA in real life and they're bullshit, well, bravo. But the game tries to make N look sympathetic, as if he's not the head of a supervillain cult. If they made Team Plasma like an actual good team that helps Pokemon, create Pokemon hospitals, adopt abandoned Pokemon, and maybe only some of the heads like Gessis and Zinzalin were evil, that would have been a real moral question of whether we should fight this ginger cult or not, and whether Team Plasma and N is right or wrong would have been a nice philosophical debate. But no, Team Plasma are just as evil as Team Rocket and are
Incompetent bad guy!
they're just comic reliefs. Bringing up the idea of Pokemon mistreatment and freedom felt unnecessary, and I think they should have not been brought up at all. It kinda broke my suspension of belief about the whole premise of this franchise where children have pet animals attack and maul each other. The game tries to ask the players, aren't you actually the bad guys for forcing Pokemon to hurt each other? But Team Plasma is comically evil. Also, Pokemon players are indeed bad guys and mistreats Pokemon actually, especially hardcore competitive players who basically turn Pokemon into sex slaves to breed Pokemon. Don't try to deny that, Game Freak. To quote Luzamine, terrible? Me? How am I different from any Pokemon trainer like your little friend there? What do you do with the Pokemon you can't use? You remove it from your party as you please. Also, the Gessis reveal seemed like a lazy way to wrap up the story. Oh boy, there was actually a hidden mastermind behind all of this, and we need to stop him. They really couldn't answer the question of whether capturing Pokemon is right or wrong, so they pulled a hidden mastermind cliche because why not? I think the main reason why Team Plasma's story doesn't work for me is because Team Plasma and N's plans are a bit too ridiculous. N apparently hates Pokemon battling, but he battles Pokemon to become champion, because if he becomes champion, he can influence the people of Unova to release their Pokemon? What? Isn't a champion like a celebrity in the Pokemon world, not a government official or a king? Like, I doubt in real life if Mr. Beast told everyone to release their pets to the wild. I doubt no one will do that, maybe except his stands. Also, man that hates putting Pokemon into Pokeballs, put Pokemon into Pokeballs because Game Freak couldn't develop following Pokemon in this game. I actually think Sun and Moon's story was better because it was a simple story about family and not ridiculously overblown. Only problem I had was that the main character isn't a character but a short circuit camera. But I liked how in this game N seems to treat you like an equal, like yin and yang I guess. Still, I have to say, I love the finale of this game though. I like this version of your expectations by having the champion not be the final boss. N's castle inserting itself into majestic Pokemon League hentai style is unrealistic but is jaw-dropping when you first see it. The whole N's castle part is amazing with the music and just oozes atmosphere. Actually, everything after Opelous's City from Victory Road to the League is amazing and is the main highlight of the game. And the final battle with N and Gessis is amazing. It was the first time ever in franchise history that an NPC used a legendary Pokemon for himself in battle. And throwing out a Zekrom against Reshiram is still an amazing moment. Made it feel like an actual battle between heroes with dragons. Too bad USGM ruined the N special treatment with legendaries by having all the evil villains use legendaries. Man, fuck that game. Part 6. This isn't America. Don't get you slipping now. Don't get you slipping. Okay, I can't do young Lando Calrissian impression. I've never liked the Unova region. Even though Black and White 2 is my favorite Pokemon game, it's not because of the Unova region but mainly because of the plentiful content. I never really liked the lore of Unova very much, and places like Abyssal Ruins, Relic Castle, and Dragon Spiral Tower felt off for me. I never could figure out what it was about Unova that I didn't like until very recently, and that is because this isn't America. Now you may think that's a good thing, but hear me out here. I was having a chat with someone on my Discord server about Legends Arceus. Go join it, it's a fun place, har. We were talking about how if they made a Legends game set in Unova, what would it look like? Since Unova is based off of New York, I joked that the main characters would dress up like Native Americans and the villain will be Christopher Columbus. But then someone pointed out Unova had a king and a legendary dragons and shit in the past, and that's part of the lore. But wait a minute. The USA is probably the country most famous in the world for not having a king and having a democracy, and New York never had castles with kings in the past. You see what I mean here? Unlike the first 4 generations which were set in Japan, Junichi Masuda said in interviews he got inspiration for Unoba after a trip to New York. Well, he must have entered a fucked up alleyway to end up in the hood to come up with a design like Scraggy and Scrafty, but that's beside the point. Anyways, Masuda said that he wanted to replicate the feeling of people coming together from all over the world and creating a society, like immigrants in the USA and especially NYC. That's why for the first time in Pokemon history, we got diversity in the game. We have our first black gym leader, first white blonde gym leader, first redhead with blue eyes gym leader, and it's a completely different atmosphere compared to Kanto, Johto, Hoenn, or Sinnoh. Game Freak really intended Unova to be USA. But here's the thing, this kind of world building related to America or New York City has nothing to do with the Team Plasma or N King storyline. You may call this a minor point, but to me, this is one of the reasons why I couldn't get into Unova, because the lore and world is a complete mess. That's why the story about N tried to becoming king of Unova or something, and the whole castle thing at the end feels kind of phony to me, so I couldn't get into it. I think Masuda wanted to do a Pokemon game that has a majestic tale about kings and heroes and dragons and lore, but also wanted to do a game set in New York City at the same time. In my opinion, you can't have both cakes at the same time. It's not just the story, but the soundtrack of the game doesn't feel anything like America. When I think of American music, I think of like jazz or rock or pop, but the soundtrack feels very Oriental. I know this is really funny coming from an Asian man, but the gym leader theme sounds like it belongs in the Johto region, not Unova. The sequel fixed it by adding electric guitar sounds in the song to make it sound like rock music, so that's another improvement. So, I actually thought about fixing the story for this game. How can we fix Unova and make the Team Plasma and storyline work better? It's actually simpler than you think. Smash fans will be triggered by this, but hear me out. They should have copy the story or setting of Fire Emblem games.
Reach for my hand.
Meaning, they should have made a game not set in modern day New York, but in medieval times, just like the Fire Emblem games. I say this because the whole story about Team Plasma and N will have worked better in a more medieval setting. Think about it. N and Team Plasma taking over the Pokemon League so they can force everyone to release their Pokemon felt phony for me. But imagine this game takes place in medieval times, and instead of being the champion, we have Alder as the king of Unova. Team Plasma are a bunch of usurpers, Knight Clan, sort of like Templars trying to take the throne. N defeats Alder by trial by Pokemon combat, and as Mew King of Unova, he will order everyone to release their Pokemon. So the hero, the main protagonist, must defeat N for the fate of Unova. Meanwhile, N's statesman and Mew Prime Minister guesses what's actually behind everything and evil, so the heroes must defeat him too. Do you like how I changed the story? I think a medieval setting would have made the story work much better than a contemporary modern USA setting. Now, I've never been to France or Hawaii because I'm a poor Korean Gen Zer, so I don't know if Game Freak was able to get Kalos and Alola right. But at least XY had food and fashion, which is kind of France, and Alola had dancing, Hawaiian gods, and surfing, right? I don't know. I just find it ironic that a region based off of a country famous for having a royal family doesn't have a king plot to it, but has soccer because Masuda and Omori like the European Premier League, I guess. Part 7, the post-game. Let's talk about the post-game because it's another level tier of bullshit. I really think the Game Freak dropped the ball with the post-game in this game, and it's so bad that I almost think they didn't even playtest this part of the game before release. So when you beat the Pokemon League, the eastern part of Unova opens up. There's not a single roadblock in the game anymore, so eastern part of Unova is basically an open world Pokemon game. Now, I like having new areas to explore after beating the Elite Four in any Pokemon game, and Gen 6 to 8 have been really bad with that. But here's where the compliment ends. Okay, so the Elite Four of Unova has level 48 to 50 Pokemon, and N and Guesses, who are the final bosses, have Pokemon in their early 50s. So when you beat the game, your Pokemon and your team are at most at mid-level 50s. For some bizarre reason, every trainer in the post-game has mid-level 60s Pokemon, meaning every random NPC you meet all have Pokemon with levels 10 above than you. Like, did I miss a part of the game that has late 50s Pokemon or something? Why are they so high? You can't even go back to the Elite Four to grind for levels because everyone now has 70 plus level of Pokemon. You can't defeat them. I'm gonna bet this happened because of what happened with the previous game, Heart Gold and Soul Silver. In the Gen 2 remakes, they made the post-game area Kanto feel very open world. The problem in that game was that every Pokemon trainer and gym leader was too easy because everyone had the same level, because you can choose to order the gyms you want to fight. So in this game they said, fuck it, everyone is too under-leveled, let's make everyone over-leveled.
That was easy.
Also, the new areas to explore are kinda boring. There is no conclusive final boss battle to the post-game area. maybe except Cynthia, but that feels like a bonus battle. Abyss of Ruins feel boring as hell because there's no legendary Pokemon in it. The only place of interest in the post-game area is Giant Chasm where you catch Kyurem. It almost feels like they ran out of time making Eastern Nova interesting and said, fuck it, let's just make this the post-game area and let the players find their own fun. Were they lazy, rushed, and cut corners? They should have made the new area have a progressive structure to them so difficulty and level NPCs go up gradually. That is what they did with the Black and White 2. They made Nacrene City to Numenera Town and P2 Laboratory the post-game area, so there's a structure to the post-game area. Also, they have second course battle at the end of that long sequence of routes where you can get the second Master Ball, which makes the post-game area be rewarding. Man, Black and White 2 is such a good game, and this game just feels kinda empty compared to it. Part 8, Minor Things. Before we wrap up, let's talk about some minor things. I do like the quality of life improvements in the battle screen. The HP bars drop down much faster than Gen 4, which leads to the speediest battle in any generation. I also like how Pokemon drop from the ground, so you can tell which Pokemon is heavy or light by the effect they make. Also, having the Pokemon ability appear as UI on screen was a nice QoL improvement. But there are stupider things in battle screen other than the aesthetics. Making a remix of the low Pokemon HP music felt totally unnecessary and it was distracting because you can't hear the real music. This is also not a nitpick, but I found the sound effects of the UI very cheap compared to Gen 4. Yeah, I might be the only guy who doesn't like it, but you hear those cheap sounding beeps all throughout the game. That sound every time you battled every trainer was annoying. And this is the guy that started his entire YouTube career off of analyzing sound effects. Outside of battle, the best quality of life improvement is being able to reuse TMs, I guess. One of the most frustrating things about the old games is that there was only one TM in the entire game, so you might have to restart a save file for one move for a Pokemon, so thank God TMs are reusable. It's ironic that recycling became a thing in a game set in the USA, am I right? Let's talk about the minor supporting characters now. I like the rivals in the end too. If you don't count Wally, it was the first game to give you 2 rivals, and I think that was a great idea. Traditionally, if you pick a starter, the rival will take the advantage type, right? Well, what happens to the other one? Well, now we have another character to do that weak type rule, so I like that addition. They were well written compared to the previous generation, and I like Game Freak gave them bare minimum character arcs. Chara learns that there is more to life than just trying to be the very best, and Bianca learns that not everyone can be a popular Pokemon trainer, similar to how not everyone can become a successful YouTuber and it's really hard to upload videos in a regular fashion because you have to pay for the bills or you don't have enough time to get a real job because you're making videos and you just graduated college so there's nothing certain and there's a fucking pandemic. I'm sorry, I had a breakdown there. Gym leaders got a lot of characterization too. What I found kinda shocking in the Sinnoh games was how boring the gym leaders were. I like how they gave each gym leader their own unique personalities. I think this was the generation that Game Freak realized the waifu potential to bait weaves and otakus with gym leaders, which evolved into the fucking gacha game a decade later, sadly. I also really like the gym leaders all coming to the rescue at the final battle at End's Castle. It was the first time seeing the gym leaders not sitting on their asses in their gyms, and it was a truly heroic moment. I also know online features like Sea Gear, Entra Link, Pokemon Dream World, Fight Forest, Black City are in the game, but honestly, I never tried them and never will. Also, most of you in 2021 may or may not will probably play this game on an emulator, so you can't use them, right? Wink wink. What I will mention last is seasons. So basically in the game, you have a season system where the weather goes through 4 seasons. Seasons change every month in real time. I really don't like this feature, and it's because 1, it feels like a gimmick and only one Pokemon line uses that gimmick. 2, some of the map layout changing is neat, but it's so minor you forget about it. 3, I think most people will be done with the game in at least 2 months, so other than hardcore Pokemon gamers, most people will not be playing this game for 4 months. So seasons is a kinda useless feature. I'm glad they ditched it in the next games, to be honest. Conclusion. So in conclusion, despite all the shit I said in the review, Pokemon Black and White was a breath of new fresh air that the series needed. Game Freak took risks, and most of the risks paid off, and it became an excellent game. But it's far from perfect, and for everything it accomplished, I feel like there were things missing as well. There are missing features from the previous generation, the story did take risks but kinda fell flat, the games weren't that pleasing aesthetically, and Unova didn't work for me. It's not a masterpiece like some people are starting to call them these days. But let's compare Black and White to generation-starting dual games in the series. Gold and Silver, Ruby and Sapphire were kinda bland, so they needed third games to fix them. Diamond and Pearl was a really bad game that needed Platinum to fix them. X and Y and Sun and Moon needed good Sword games but didn't get them. Sword and Shield is just shit that got sprinkled with DLC. But Black and White was probably the only generation starting duo games that didn't need a Sword version because it was solid enough. Game Freak must have realized it too, because we got sequels instead because there wasn't much to improve. So, even though I think Pokemon fans are starting to overrate this game as a masterpiece, I admit it's a good game that was underappreciated when they came out. Considering Game Freak's tendency to be, lazy, rushed, and cut corners, playing this game was a refreshing nostalgia trip that reminded me of a simpler time. A time where Masuda didn't rely on content nostalgia, a time where they actually took risks with the story, a time where they took a chance by limiting the Pokédex. Man, I miss the brave Game Freak we once knew. Game Freak after this generation never once felt like they took a risk. That was almost until a decade later, when they announced Legends Arceus, which is a big risk at least, but I've said in a previous video that I'm very concerned about Legends Arceus' game quality, but that's a topic for a whole another day. Anyways, to conclude my thoughts on Pokemon Black and White, good game, refreshing, but just don't think too highly of it. In the end, it's just another goddamn Pokemon game. Thanks for watching. This review, by the way, is the 1-year anniversary of Why Modern Pokemon Games Suck video, my first hit video on YouTube. And I want to thank all Jerry Gens who have been following me for the past year, and I want to say thank you. I really mean it. It's been a great journey, and I can't wait to make more videos after this. The next games I'll review will probably be the Gen 6 Hoenn remix, in anticipation of BDSP. So I'm currently streaming this game to capture footage and review them, and I hope you guys don't miss that. That's it, and to wrap up the video and to bait people that might have fast forwarded to the ending, I must say again, Unova sucks!